You all asked for it, so here it is. The strongest Toon of today versus the strongest Toon in history. Could the Porous one, Spongebob Squarepants, defeat the king of cash grabs, or would Mickey Mouse beat the fraud in a pineapple under the sea? This is SpongeBob versus Mickey. And to begin, let's start with SpongeBob, because while there are plenty of characters who might rival his placement for the strongest Toon in modern history, between books, games, and in-universe portrayal, I'm comfortable saying that the Sponge is clearly written to be a special character. Not even just amongst the wider cast of Nick mythology, but across all of cartoon history. Showing off feats like statuing other Nicktoons with his fourth wall breaking time stops, or being able to resist the morphoid globs of doom, which were a parasitic calamity capable of threatening the whole Nick multiverse. And with that depiction putting him a step above the rest of his network, it's not impossible to see how SpongeBob's scaling could spiral wildly out of control. With that level of hype unironically staying sort of consistent over the years as SpongeBob's battled godlike deities of time, interacted with the creator of the multiverse, outright brawled with other Toons from across multiple networks, and regularly alters his own reality just to fit his daily needs. But pause. In saying that, I'm sure if you've ever actually watched an episode of SpongeBob SquarePants, you'd know that Spongy here, even in all of his extra-dimensional glory, is still, at the end of the day, just a 4-inch tall fry cook who lives in a waterlogged pineapple under the sea and regularly finds himself getting bodied by pretty much everyone. So how exactly does SpongeBob go from a threat to the multiverse capable of saving the ninth dimension to being incapable of basic tasks like driving or lifting 2 marshmallows? Are these secretly outerversal marshmallows capable of soloing gods and beating your favorite series? No. In all actuality, this trait is a power even greater than any boundless confectionery could ever hope to achieve, as SpongeBob is blessed by the writers with the broken ability of Toon Force, a special power that mixes imagination with humor to bring anything you could possibly need into reality. It's existed as long back as the Looney Tunes or Tom and Jerry through concepts like Squash and Stretch or Hammer Space, but generally speaking, for any character who has it, whatever is funny is fair game. From struggling to bench a plushie to unraveling the entire universe by a thread, it's quite literally the strongest power in fiction, with only one glaring weakness keeping its users from diving off the deep end into constant outerversal insanity: its complete lack of consistency. Any power, ability, or quality granted to a user of Toon Force is left at the mercy of the writer's needs. It's not a power you can often control, and it's also not always helpful either, as iconic abilities for SpongeBob like regeneration, immunity to physical damage, and his skill in karate are all subject to going straight out the window in some of the show's best scenes. And on the flip side, you could always point at things like SpongeBob becoming the moon, absorbing the sea, or turning into a god just by saying, "I'm Goofy Goober!" Because Toon Force, when working favorably, transcends everything. From logic to mortality, and in rare instances, it can even affect the lives of people outside the bounds of a story. Real people who quite literally view his world as fiction. Meaning that, when SpongeBob's Toon Force is working in his favor, he can be argued to be outright above fiction, as well as being functionally immune to, well, everything. But what if I told you there might actually be 2 other things in SpongeBob's arsenal that could potentially even surpass his Toon Force absurdity if looked at charitably? One part of this 2-sided trump card comes from a classic episode that you'd probably remember: Frankendoodle. Or, for the non-cartoon nerds out there, the one about the magic pencil. Now, while you could argue that the magic pencil is just a regular pencil stuck in the 2D world of SpongeBob, making it sort of irrelevant for his higher scaling, if you're a bit more generous with your interpretation, we could say this is a pencil from the real world, which is shown to exist in SpongeBob canon through multiple Patchy the Pirate specials, where he calls celebrities and visits Nick's studios. Assuming you buy into this idea, then the magic pencil, which we see erase and create new fictional life, should basically make SpongeBob just as powerful as the cartoon artist, who is obviously beyond fiction themselves for creating the cartoon. And while it might be a bit of a stretch, if you follow that logic a little further, the tie-in video game SpongeBob Hero Pants sees us follow a continuation of the second SpongeBob movie, where the second half of SpongeBob's trump card is revealed, in the form of a page from the magic book stuck in SpongeBob's head. A book featured in said SpongeBob movie that makes anything written on it, or in SpongeBob's case, imagined on it, become a reality. And since this book was also found in the real world, just like the pencil, you could argue that it's similarly beyond fiction, which would make SpongeBob both the artist and the writer. But even if not, it still functionally works, like having all the Infinity Stones from Marvel crammed into your brain, because the book is 100% capable of controlling all aspects of SpongeBob's reality, like a control panel for the universe. So the magic item trump card duo either makes SpongeBob capable of controlling and erasing all of fictional Bikini Bottom at a whim, or potentially makes him just as powerful as the people creating the story if you're a bit more generous with your interpretations. Enough of Mr. Fair and Square though, it's finally time to talk about Disney's all-encompassing Rodent King. And since we've already got a full video covering everything the mouse is capable of, we're just gonna hit the highlights of history's most iconic Toon. Since it should be sort of obvious that Mickey, just like SpongeBob, is an apt user of that oh-so-OP Toon Force from before. From film to television and every other colorful screen in between, he's had almost 100 years to be granted every sort of wacky ability under the sun, up to and including literally grabbing the sun out of the sky. And again, just like Spongy, Mickey has never been a stranger to the position of Network's #1, as over the years, Disney has brought their billion-dollar mascot into almost everything. From being a Jedi in Star Wars canon, to hosting the company's biggest cartoon crossovers, and even establishing him as a straight-up immortal. We learn about this little immortality quirk from the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where it's described that Toons are impervious to dying against anything, including the writer actively trying to remove them from a story. Which is backed up by Mickey canonically meeting Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, and a host of other Looney Tunes characters during this crossover, who have survived attacks from the writers themselves. Just like SpongeBob though, Mickey has his own pair of aces tucked neatly into those comically long future sleeves. Because of course, we've got to talk about King Mickey. As unlike SpongeBob, whose series was never really meant to be taken too seriously, the Kingdom Hearts franchise has legitimized what I can only describe as a full-blown anime Mickey Mouse. One kitted out with his very own giant anime sword, swaths of OP magic abilities like Time Stop or Healing, and most importantly, the kind of drip which can only be obtained after centuries of grinding your way up from Steamboat Rascal to the crowned king of Disney Castle. And as the final Mickey in the disconnected Disney timeline, his story is meant to be taken completely seriously, giving him an entirely separate source of power from his Toon abilities to draw upon, which are still strong enough on their own to place Mickey above gods like Zeus and Hercules, while also standing alone as Disney's sole defender from multiversal enemies. But just like before, this card is a two-sided deal, because Mickey has a second ability so deadly that it might even just straight up surpass Toon Force, and it stems back to a little-known game series called Epic Mickey, where Mickey and his soon-to-be master from Kingdom Hearts, named Yen Sid, would create an alternate universe for the forgotten Toon characters of Disney. And as you can guess, problems ensued, which would then send Mickey on a dangerous quest to save it with a paintbrush. Yes, but not just any paintbrush. This is the paintbrush that created the entire Lost Toon reality. It's a lot like SpongeBob's magic pencil, except the things that Mickey creates aren't just animated drawings, but new, fully fledged Toon characters, made of the same ink as himself, Donald, or Goofy. In fact, the ink is so similar that it can literally be used to redraw or repair things, both living and not. With a single splash of this brush's paint, Mickey could literally turn you into an entirely different person, and then recreate a Taco Bell in your driveway from an alternate dimension or something. And that sort of craziness is just what happens when he creates, as at the tip of his fingers, through a mixture of turpentine, acetone, and benzene, his blue paint can be swapped out for a green paint thinner, known as the dip, which to our knowledge is the only thing capable of ending the life of a Toon in the caliber of Bugs or Mickey. Its effects transcend everything, from erasing immortal Toons, which even the writers couldn't put down, to melting away reality itself. With feats like that, it's probably pretty obvious where I'm standing. As much as I love SpongeBob, no Beyond Fiction pencil, magic book, or any amount of hype I could possibly give him would even let him beat Mickey's writer-surpassing immortality. And on the flip side, SpongeBob has canonically straight up died, meaning the brush won't have any problems, since if it's good enough to slash through the world of Warner Bros. And Disney, it's good enough for the strongest fry cook under the sea. Sorry if the absorbent one versus the king of Disney went as poorly as the battle for Jujutsu Sorcery, but if you still want to know who could actually stop Mickey, just click right here, and that's all for today. Thanks, everyone.
As long as there are stars in the sky, SpongeBob will live on in our hearts and in our minds. Now get lost. I mean, bye. No, really, get lost.